think his analysis led him to the conclusion, a very logical conclusion, that all other global awards do not necessarily celebrate Africans. So his idea was, without waiting for anyone to dictate to us as Africans, tell us what is good or bad for us. And also, he said, let us not accept other people's narratives about Africans, because he deduced that we have our own vision, our own priorities, and our own models. So he said, why not recognize our icons and the true African leaders? And that is how the Pan-African Awards was formed. The theme for the 4th edition of the Pan-African Awards is a revisitation of the political, economic, cultural, and spiritual challenges faced by continental and diasporic Africans in the 21st century. The way forward. The development of current world events, which in the case of Africa in particular, are evidently linked to past and historical occurrences, need to be discussed. It is true and very painful that some of the actors who, without shame or remorse, conducted the slave trade and the colonial expeditions in yesteryears remain determined to keep their ill-acquired advantages today. After 4 centuries of combined slavery and colonialism, they are now disguised as upholders and providers of, in quotes, human rights, which they have branded as, again in quotes, universal. Lately, their characterization of what a minority of them mean by human rights, or, again in quotes, gender rights, has shocked Africa as a whole. Once again, the aim of some decision makers in the West is clearly to subordinate Africans in the deepest definition of that concept through a doubtful, a misadvised, and a repugnant morality. And that is something we simply cannot accept. Our continent, which is the only known birthplace of the entire human race, the place where human knowledge originated, should not and cannot stand still before those whose aim is to destroy our common humanity. We are gathered here symbolically in the Rift Valley, which is where all human beings started their earthly journey. It is the sacred duty of all Africans to denounce perversity and restate the enduring values that have characterized the peaceful evolution of human beings. Most importantly, Africans in the largest sense of that definition must make concrete proposals to help in the building of a more humanely oriented and compassionate world. Historically, when we refer to today, we shall call this event the Rift Valley Declaration on African World Values. It is to this noble endeavor to which you are present here today, this Friday, the 21st of February, 2025. That was the thought of the founder of the Pan-African Awards, and that is what I've just shared. I'm sure for many of you, it rings so true. And it inspires me to make this rallying call for all of us. And I would be delighted if you would join me when I say, Leo mu Africa, you say, Milele mu Africa. Leo mu Africa.
Milele mu Africa.
Leo mu Africa.
Milele mu Africa.
There's no energy. Leo mu Africa.
Milele mu Africa.
Thank you. Our program for today, I will begin with the presentation of the speakers. And then each speaker is going to make a 10-minute, and it's not a very tight 10-minute presentation, but the guideline is roughly 10 minutes. Thereafter, there's going to be a Q&A session. And finally, we shall make the conclusions. We shall come to some conclusions. I will try and maybe summarize what we have discussed today. So, before I call on the presenters one by one, I just would like to recognize immediately on my right, Professor Mary Getui. Most of you students here do recognize her. Thank you, Professor, for joining us today. Next to her is Dr. Jean-Emmanuel Pondy. Thank you very much for joining us today. Professor, thank you, Asanteni. You got my back, eh? And next to him, we have Joshua Maponga Barara, and many of you also recognize him. Thank you very much. Next to him, we have Natalie Yam. I don't think there's anybody in the Francophone speaking, so-called Francophone speaking world that does not know Natalie Yam. But she is bilingual, so you will see her expertise in English. Same with Professor Pond, they're experts in both languages. And then last but not least, our very own pro.Lumumba. So before I invite our first speaker to take the floor, I would like to say a prayer, and I'm going to say this prayer in English first, and then I'm going to say it in French. For this particular prayer, I need you to keep your eyes open, your hearts open, and your heads held up high for this one. My prayer is as follows. May the real you, the African in you, rise up as you listen to the words of these courageous and noble elders. These ones, many of whom who have come from many miles to bring you truth of what it means to be African. May the seeds of truth that will be spoken today take root in your hearts to bring forth knowledge, discernment, and freedom. May this truth be forever imprinted in your minds for future reference. May you also add your own voice to the voices of these great ones that will share with you what belongs to you for free and with great love. In French, ma prière d'aujourd'hui est la suivante. Puisse le vrai vous, l'Africain en vous, se lever, alors que vous écoutez les paroles de ces aînés courageuses et nobles. Ceux qui ont parcouru de nombreux kilomètres pour vous apporter la vérité sur ce que signifie être africain. Que les semences de la vérité annoncées aujourd'hui s'enracinent dans vos cœurs pour faire naître la connaissance, le discernement et la liberté. Puisse cette vérité être à jamais imprimée dans vos esprits pour référence future. Puissiez-vous aussi ajouter votre propre voix aux voix de ces grands qui partageront avec vous ce qui vous appartient gratuitement et avec beaucoup d'amour. I'm going to invite our first speaker for this afternoon, and she is beloved in this community. And before I invite her, I would like to share a couple of proverbs with you. The first one is from our very own Buki wa Thiong'o, who said, "To be educated is to possess a critical awareness of oneself and one's culture." And he added that education must be a tool for empowerment and not an instrument of oppression. And also, to add to this voice, I would like to add that of Dr. Amos Wilson, who said, our survival as Africans depends on the reclamation of our cultural heritage. As Professor Mary Getui prepares to come to this podium and give her lecture, her presentation, I would like to tell those of you who do not know her that Professor Mary Getui teaches in the Department of Religious Studies here at the Catholic University of Eastern Africa, and she holds the position of Director, Quality Assurance. Previously, she was based at Kenyatta University, where she served in various capacities. She was a chairman in the Department of Philosophy and Religious Studies. She was a director in the Board of Undergraduate Studies and dean in the School of Humanities and Social Sciences. In both Catholic University of East Africa and Kenyatta University, Professor Getui has acted as Deputy Vice Chancellor Academics. She has published widely in religion, education, culture, family, gender, peace studies, and health. She was conferred Moran of the Burning Spear in 2009. Between 2009 and 2015, Professor Mary Getui served as chair in the National AIDS Control Council. She continues to be a member of several public and community initiatives, both locally and internationally. She also edited a book on African culture called African Culture in the 21st Century. Copies will be available today. Thank you very much, Professor. So I now invite Professor Mary Getui to come and make her presentation.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I think it's more of evening. You must be tired. Bear with us. This is a noble moment when we are going to talk about the role of indigenous African tradition in the multifaceted challenges faced by Africans on the continent and out there in the diaspora. It was just a few days ago when I learned about this event. I was invited to speak on this topic. I couldn't refuse because I truly appreciate African culture. I truly appreciate the challenges that we are facing. And so for me, being here is not so much to share the thoughts I have today, but also just to learn and to be together. Because in Africa, community is very important. And for those who have traveled far, we want to say, Karibu Sana. John Mbiti wrote, "The man or woman of Africa must get up and dance, for better or for worse, on the arena of the world drama." And I want to add that this drama is both here on the continent and out there, where many of our people are, some by choice, but many because of circumstances that have dictated, right from slave trade to the other forms of slave trade that we have today. Just sometime this week, there was an article in our newspapers about many Kenyans and many others from this continent who are stranded in countries in Asia in the search of greener pastures, but really ending up in the depths of torture. Now, going back to what Mbiti said, that the African needs to dance in the world drama, there's a lot of drama today. I don't know how to describe it, but there is rapid change. And all the way back again, 1969, Mbiti said that the African has gone through total or upheaval change of culture. It has been radical, it has been rapid, it has been revolutionary, and in all facets of our lives, be it spiritual, be it economic, be it social, be it political. And what makes this worse is that there has been, but there's no psychological preparation for this drama, which is so rapid and which is so intense. This drama is also associated with darkness. In that, as Waragoro has just said, the cradle of you or whatever we did was light, and we knew it, we danced to it, but a lot of it has been taken away, a lot of it has been distorted, and a lot of it has been declared as a king. What else can we call that if not darkness? So what is the evidence of these multifaceted challenges that Africa is going through? Thank you very much. I hope that is better. Thank you. Which are some of these manifestations or evidence of these multi-challenges that we face on the continent? We don't have the time to analyze each one of them, but science, as understood, more so maybe from the academic perspective, here we are at the Catholic University of Eastern Africa, technology, which is turning our worlds upside down, mass media, some of our students are here. Instead of being in class, there are many other things that take our attention. And of course, education. We are not condemning it. Because as Mbiti said, we must dance to what the world expects. Urbanization and many other factors. A little bit about urbanization. It has made us lose our connections with each other, our humanity, our being. A lot of times we have become anonymous. So what is it that we can consider from African indigenous traditions that can help us in these many challenges that we face today? One is that we need to reclaim the place of religion, and maybe more importantly, the place of spirituality, our connection to the other, our understanding and our appreciation that there is a power beyond us, there is a force that is responsible for our being. And again, I quote Mbiti, he says that in African culture, there is no distinction between the secular and the spiritual. Secondly, we need to have our personal consciousness. I am a mother, I'm a grandmother, And one of the things I hope and I pray that my people will have, my students, and some of them are here, is that we have a backbone of ourselves. Because in our traditions, everybody mattered and everybody was special. Even when you were the embarrassment of the community, a way was found to cover your nakedness. I also want to consider that we need, I don't know whether to use this word, to reclaim the family, the community. Individualism and other ills that work against our family, our community. And this is evidenced in the way we are trying to revive our alumni. We will go to our professional associations, those from the same village, we try and gather together. It's because alone we cannot stand. We need others. I like money and the things that money does for us. But the challenge we have is the greed and worship of money, the material things. How else do we explain all the ills that we have in our society? The African indigenous setup, it was service, it was promotion of life, it was not the focus on the material. Indeed, when you went to a medicine person, you could give them a token, regardless of whether you are the king or the lowest. I don't like using that really, but the lowest of the society, because it was not payment. But everything now, look at it in terms of money. Another factor that we could get from our indigenous setup is not to compartmentalize our lives. I'm a teacher, then maybe tomorrow I go to church, or I'm a trader. But if we could look at life from this whole, from its wholeness and from its completeness. I could go on, time is not on our side. One of the things, one of the promoters of African culture, Laurent Magesa, he has said that one of the things that we can do as Africans and what we can offer to the world out there is to look at things from our heart, with compassion, with passion, knowing that everything has an implication for our inner self, our inner happiness, our inner being. On the issue of the diaspora, I do not have much to say. There's a lot that could be said. And in this book, which was referred to earlier, I'll say one or two things about it. Elizabeth Wanyoike has reflected on what it means to live out there in the United States of America. Her article is actually a reflection on being at home, but out there. We could yearn to go out to the diaspora. Circumstances could force us there, but there's a realization that we must remember our roots, because we have a Swahili saying which says, the person who does not have appreciation of their culture is actually a slave. Timothy Njoya once said that being Kenyan is not geographical. So regardless of where we find ourselves, we can promote, we can be proud of our roots. Not to forget that there are also challenges. This book has got 22 chapters. It was launched right here in our university on 2nd of October last year. In 2023, I had a sabbatical leave and I wanted to do a project of my own. And many of my students, my younger scholars, looking for an opportunity to publish. So I invited many of them, and we have these chapters, 22 of them. The title of this publication is African Culture, the 21st Century, Persistent Opportunities, Challenges, and Prospects. There are many issues talked about here. The desire is for us to look at some of these issues from the contemporary perspective. Appreciate that we may not go back on some of our beliefs and some of our practices, but those principles that were dear and gave life to those of our people who have rested, who have slept, can continue to guide us today. Just about a few of them include our values, Ubuntu spiritual philosophy. The contributor is right here in this room, Sam Ebale. I think I saw him earlier. We have a chapter on initiation rights. We have a chapter on sex, sexuality, and education in Africa. We have about weddings. We have an article on widowhood. We have an article on death and how COVID-19 disrupted us. We have a chapter on sacrifice. We have a chapter I'm about to finish on festivals in West Africa and in Ethiopia. And we have a paper on the place of women in various communities on the continent. Wairimu Churu is also here. She has an article on prospects of Ubuntu-inspired education for communities in Africa. Then we have two chapters on governance and politics, and we also have a chapter on environmental challenges. And again, reconciliation and peace on the continent. And what is it that Pentecostalism has done for us as Africans? And there is an article on fashion. When I look in this room, I see a lot of that. It is not just clothes, but it has deep spiritual meanings. The other article that I referred to, being at home, far from home. Whichever your persuasion, we need to remember what Mbiti has said. Yes, there's a lot of rapid change around us, but even as we dance, we know that we have our own movements and we have our own tunes. Thank you for your time.
Can we have a better round of applause? Thank you so much for sharing those ideas and those suggestions in terms of the way forward for us, what we can do to claim the base of religion and the face of spirituality, how we should regroup as communities, how we need to renounce greed and the worship of money and put service to humanity first above that of material things, how we should stop compartmentalizing our lives, and how we should do all things with compassion and passion. Let us be more transformational rather than just transactional. And she shared that with us and many other references, and the books that she's proposed, I think she has them there. They're there in the front as you come into the auditorium. please make sure that you stop by and have a look at what she has brought for us. So now I would like to introduce our next speaker, and before I do that, I would like to quote one of my favorite people in the world, one of my favorite Africans. That is Bob Marley. Bob Marley said, and I know some of you might feel like singing when I say this, emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. And he also said, every man got a right to decide his own destiny. I heard some of you are shy, but you need to shout. Every man has a right to determine, yeah, to decide his own destiny. I also want to quote the founder, known as the founder of Pan-Africanism, Marcus Mosiah Garvey said, a people without the knowledge of their past history, origin, and culture, that is a people like a tree without roots. Right. Dr. Joshua Maponga Barara is a Zimbabwean entrepreneur, a motivational speaker, and an author known for his focus on personal development, youth empowerment, and leadership. He specializes in inspiring young people to harness their potential and pursue entrepreneurial opportunities. Maponga Marara often conducts workshops, seminars, and talks where he emphasizes the importance of hard work, self-discovery, self-reliance, and a positive mindset. He encourages individuals to take initiative in their personal and professional lives and to contribute positively to their communities. He addresses very difficult and challenging topics without flinching an eye. And one of the ones that I really admire personally is that of financial literacy, which is of course linked to entrepreneurship. And he also talks about the significance of a spiritual and moral foundation in achieving success. Please join me in welcoming with a big round of applause, Dr.
Hello everybody.
Hello.
Sanbonani, Moloeni, Karibu, Makadini, Da. They can go for 2,000 kilometers doing languages. But I'm glad to be here and sharing the stage with some of my favorite people here. And the internet has made it possible for us to have a community. And look at us, I mean, living thousands of kilometers away from each other. But through social media and AI and computer, internet, connectedness of things, difficult and complicated things have been made possible. Colonialism could have taken us a long time, but I think our revolution will be much faster. Ask me why. Ask me why.
Why?
I'm going to ask the Gen Zs.
Yes.
They will tell you that what will take a year to 2 years to achieve, it can be done in a week's time. Message can run around. Maybe we are not yet tired of being sick and tired. Immediately we are. We'll be able to transform ourselves. Don't worry about my looks. I still have a few suits in my wardrobe. Very nice. A few Gucci's, a few Giorgio Armani's and stuff. But I've decided deliberately to offend those that are still thinking that being African is offensive. Sooner or later, we need just to walk away from this oppression personally and free yourself. It's one thing for us to talk about emancipate yourself from mental slavery. But you must try one day to make that practical. That's when you will notice that colonialism project is thorough and it was real. Now come with me. I will talk to myself as if all of you are not here so that I can enjoy myself and I don't have to worry about what happens, who happens, where happens. Put your head on your head and say after me, this is how I think. Now, if your head is not on your head, either English is a problem or you don't have what I'm asking for. Put your hand on your head and say after me, this is how I think.
This is how I think.
This also includes those that are very educated, who are always looking very suspicious, wondering, what is this all about? I said, put your hand on your head and say after me, this is how I think.
This is how I think.
That is the first edge. Put your hand on your heart and say after me, this is how I feel.
This is how I feel.
One more time, this is how I feel.
This is how I feel.
Put your hand in your hand and say after me, this is how I do.
This is how I do.
Let's say it like we believe it. This is how I think.
This is how I think.
This is how I feel.
This is how I feel.
This is how I do.
This is how I do.
There are only three things you must do in life and die. Number one, you must use the head for thinking. It's not a cosmetic center for hanging things. Your head must be used for the furniture that is in your 2 ears, if that makes sense to you. And many of us spend so much time fixing the cosmetics of our faces and forget the furniture that is inside our heads. That gives me the hashtag number one. When the face is beautiful and the software is not working, hardware suffers. In more simpler terms, when country is beautiful and the continent is beautiful, but we don't have the brains, our resources will always suffer. Use your brains for thinking. Calibrate it, populate your mind with positive thinking. Be the business of thinking. I've been hanging around enough scholars by now to know some of them say, I think. Meanwhile, they're not thinking, they're just quoting other thinkers. We understand quotations and etc., but we need to grow soon enough to begin to speak from the gut and be honest about where we are and what we really think. And I struggled when I started off in this Pan-African direction until I discovered how to think. Piero, I had to sit with myself with nothing in front of me. Having finished half of this wall of theological books, and I said to myself, so what? So what? So what? After William Shakespeare, Charles Dickens, by the way, BT, one of my favorite authors also for indigenous African knowledge systems and etc. You go through systematic theologies, the Louis Beckhoffs, you go through Gerhard Hassels, you go through Derrida, you go through deconstruction, and so what? And I opted to say, I better start thinking. Number two, you better find where your heart is, because your heart gives you the emotion and the drive to do. If right now all of you young people are not yet married, if your young lady can send you a picture and say, I want you here by tonight, and you have nothing in your pocket, I know you will be there. Don't ask me how. You will make a plan. True or false? No? You will make a plan. You will pawn your phone, you will borrow money, you will do anything, you will Uber, you will taxi, you will make a plan. Therefore, none amongst us here can say, I don't have money, because money follows desire. When you want to do something, you will find the resources to do it. So therefore, your heart is important, because it is the fuel for your transport. Your heart is important. It will drive you to go where you must go. Unfortunately, many of us, our passion are in other things. At the end of the day, we achieve less of what we really need to achieve, because we are preoccupied by cosmetics. Use your head for thinking, H number one. Use your heart for feeling, H number two. Use your hand for doing, H number three. Don't just think about it. Don't just think about it. Do about it. They want to pass, how? Hey, Africa will be free. How? Hey, I'm going to get married. How and when? It is the how part that separates infatuation, emotions, ideas into practical applications. So think about that, feel about that, do about that. I went to the market this morning. Can you put this together for me? I think I look sharp, didn't it? Don't be jealous now. Don't be jealous now. This is all Kenyan. I went to the market this morning, and I decided to dress up myself and free myself. And others are wondering what is underneath. Nothing. None of your business. Nothing. In fact, those who have done biology, you must walk freely. Africans knew that male health is important. All these tight jeans we put, they're actually a problem to reproduction and other things. But we'll talk about that on another health expo. But there's nothing wrong with you walking around and leave them hanging. Is that okay? I went to the market and I got myself a tool that I'm holding in my hand. I have lots of them in my house, more than 65 of them. Every time I travel, I buy sticks. Anyone who says that our forefathers could not write, it is him or her who cannot read. Because their writing was different from our writings. They wrote in art. They wrote in craft. They wrote in pieces of furniture. When you look at my head, don't just admire it. It's a full dietary menu. You must eat green, you must eat yellow, you must eat orange, you must eat what? You can have this head and actually be healthier than you think. It is a menu. You can also take this head and go to the bush and you'll find that it is a key to herbs. You can take this head and go to biology and you'll find that actually every color that is connected to the members of the body. At the end of the day, the colors of my head, the colors of the herbs, and the colors of your organs are all linked up together. So that our forefathers knew these things and they put them in pieces of art. And then you say it's demonic and it is satanic. No wonder you're on diabetes tablets and you have a problem with sugar, with hypertension. Because you undermine knowledge and you exalt what is meaningless. I hold in my hand here a piece of stick as I'm closing, which has 7 divisions on it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Can you read after me? 1,
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
I challenge you, if you're in Kenya, please go to this market just down the road here. Go and buy yourself one of these babies, put it in a nice frame, and you buy it in remembrance of me. After today, this will never be the same again. Are you ready? On your marks, get set, go. Colonization has 7 pillars that hold it together. Pillar number 1 is what we call sports and recreation. Come with me. Sports and
Recreation.
recreation, entertainment, where we're spending hundreds of hours watching 12, 21, 2 people, 3 people, if it is soccer, 22 men who badly need rest, being watched by 65 million who badly need exercise. People will fight over Arsenal, over Barcelona, fight over buy t-shirts and etc. Entertainment, and they forget whatever enters you attains you. So we are occupied in entertainment, as if as Africans we do not have a way of entertaining ourselves. Unfortunately, pardon me, some of you who are soccer and tennis addicts, some of these sports are stupid. Literally stupid. You must look at African sports where we have stones put on the ground in 2 rows this side, 2 rows that side. You must calculate 1, 2. I now have 4. 4 plus, I now have 8. 8 here, grab 2 there, grab 4 there. 4 plus 8 plus 2 plus 6. I now have 12. Add up them, and you count up these things. We did arithmetic, and in case you did not know, these are some of the basic binary sciences which are now using in terms of computer science. And we throw away these games for some stupid little Arsenal t-shirts of a team that is in Timbuktu and Honolulu that we don't even know. And we beat each other up and we fight with our wives and the husbands because our teams have lost. I think we have lost our minds.
Sure.
Entertainment is one pillar. They know that if these people, we can keep them busy. Keep them
Busy.
Keep them busy. 6 hours. The stadium opens at 8, 9 in the morning. The game is at 3 in the afternoon. People are all waiting for those 90 minutes. How much time do you lose watching movies? How much time do you lose being entertained? And whoever is entertaining you is occupying your mind and populating it with foreign information. Come on, put your head and say, no illegal immigrants here. Come on. I'll say it like you believe it. No illegal immigrants here. Because you find yourself dressing in a certain way, talking in a certain way, and you don't know why. I mean, I've had friends at college who went to America for 2 weeks. They came back, oh, man, you know what I'm talking about, you know what I mean, you know what I mean. They look and say, man, for crying out loud, like 2 weeks, 2 weeks. The mind is totally corrupted and confused. That's entertainment. Pillar number 2, education. Say after me. Pillar number 1, you don't fail in my class. If you fail, you are beyond teaching. You must claim all your school fees back. Number 1 is entertainment, sports, and recreation. Watch out the stuff that entertains you and occupies you and wastes your time. Number 2, education. Here, talk for the whole day. What you call formal education is informal education. Ask me why. Ask me why. Because when you finish it, they want 1 year experience. And then you wonder, for the past 8 years, I've been studying primary school, high school, college, graduated, I hereby apply for a job. And then they say, we want 1 year experience. Shut up! Where do you think I get it from? I've just walked out of college. There's no way I can have experience. What you call formal education is actually informal education. But our indigenous education is formal education. Because by the time you finish it, you know how to do. The secrets and sacred are 2 different words. Secrets, we keep information away from you because we don't want you to know. Sacred, we only share with you because you must experience it. So who is knowledgeable? The one who knows secrets or the one who has gone through sacred? Sacred is experiential because you are being, you are becoming. As you experience, you learn. Learning is not detached. God is not hiding in a book, Professor. That must go and look for him in John 3:16. This is with theologians. So, do you know God? Go and read the Bible. I mean, the whole creator of the universe hiding in a small little book somewhere. There's much more to life than us looking for the universe in a small little booklet. Look at nature. Look at the wind. Look at the food you are eating. Look at the childbirth. Look at all these things, and you tell me that you cannot see the divine hand wiggling its way in the affairs of mankind? But the education has been given teaches us how to write CVs. Our education is a passport to foreign lands. Our education is not practical. No wonder you find a teacher applying for a job instead of opening a school. A whole doctor is now a qualified doctor, but he's applying for a job. Then you wonder, what did you study? You studied to be an employee, not to become the champion of your own destiny. Let me fly. Entertainment, education. Number 3, health and technology. Here is where many of us are dying, digging our graves with our teeth. The removal of our indigenous foods gave us plastic foods. And the pharmaceutical companies, they make money out of our sicknesses. And I'm glad everyone sitting in front of me today came through COVID. Are you awake now? Are you woke now? Some, of course, rush to do vaccinations and etc. You are in a hurry for nowhere. When, sorry for not you guys are good white people. When a white man says it, our fellow black people will rapidly lose their heads because some little skew-eyed boy called Bill Gates can say what he says. Oh, you need to be vaccinated. Did he vaccinate himself? And here we are, all of us running with medications. We don't know the impact. I was reading the other day all these vaccinations and contraceptions and chicken and what that is coming to Kenya. Your cows are going to be vaccinated and what. I'm not going to be eating beef from Kenya in a very long time. I'm not joking. I'm not joking. Because I know a witch in my village. A witch is the one who treats what is not sick. When you are sleeping at night and you are healthy, and then someone comes in the night when you are sleeping, and then they give you medicine to treat you and you are not sick. Now, anyone who is treating a person who is not sick is a witch. By the way, in our villages, we don't have witch doctors. It was actually a science. They were asking, Which craft is this? Not witchcraft. It was witchcraft is this. As much as you have aircraft, we have craft in short. These are crafts. So when they saw a woman moving her hands on top of a pregnant woman, and the baby would move and face the right direction, the white man looked and says, witchcraft. What science is this? So before you call Africans witchcraft, and you call our practice witchcraft, you may want to find out even bullets, gunpowder used to be witchcraft dust until someone was able to put it in a brass barrel. Now it is a science of war. So until you can find some few people lightning, maybe we have enough electricity. And those who know how to fly at night, we don't buy air tickets. You can just go to the back of the house, take off your clothes and sit on a mat. You are there by tomorrow morning. Until this thing, now you're talking, you're laughing. But you remember that the time when they discovered the cell phone, who thought that some people would talk without a line? Are we not using cell phones now? Is this not witchcraft? Now, before the end of this year, next year, we're going to be having holograms. Aponga J does not need to come here. Put a big camera there, put a big thing here, put a big screen here, and Maponga J right in Johannesburg. Hello, Nairobi. You'll be seeing my ghost right here without me being here. Is that not witchcraft? Oh, because there's a science behind it. And it can be repeated again and again. Then it stops being witchcraft. It starts being a science. So even going to heaven is witchcraft. Who has ever been there? We can't even prove it. But then that's a subject for another day. Entertainment, education, health, and technology. Our technologies were removed away from us. Let me fly faster. Business and economics. Business and
Economics.
One.
Sports and entertainment.
Two.
Education.
I did know that professors also get things wrong. Yeah? Professors, what's happening here? One.
Sports and entertainment.
Two.
Education.
Three.
Health and technology.
Four.
Business and economics.
Business and economics. Money is stupid. Someone prints $100 American. To print $100 American costs you 18 cents. 18 cents. And you bring a bag full of 18 cent papers in a briefcase, and you collect gold from Africa. And you leave us a bunch of papers. There's no value. In our old business model, we used to barter value for value. Now, who can buy land? Who can buy a cow? And at the end of the year, the cow he bought from me has given birth to another cow, 100% of the initial purchase. And the following year, another one, 100%, 300%. Tell me which bank will give you 300% profit on any investment, except if it's a mid scheme. So our form of business and economics was removed from land, and it was moved to the bank. And when you get to the bank, without land, you have no guarantees. So here is the African as a slave, working for papers to buy the food to the land he was disenfranchised from. And the vicious cycle of poverty started in Africa. When you take away land from us, we don't even have a right of reproduction. Look at a lion, walks in the bush, and it pees on some few trees. It pees on some few trees, marking its territory. After it has put its wing in a territory, then it comes here and starts reproducing. Without land, it is illegal to reproduce. Every man must have 2 wives. Come on, put your hands together. Every man must have 2 wives. The first wife is land. The second wife is the one who makes children for you. Oh, women are finally happy now, eh? I can see you. No. What are you in a hurry for? First wife is land. Because if you don't have land, you're going to give birth to poverty. And you cannot impregnate your wife, and then you are going to beg for food to look after your children. Young ladies who are here, when a man says, I love you, don't say why. Stupid question. Ask where.
Where? Come on.
You get the difference? No, I love you, I love you. Say why? That question is for kindergarten. Say where. Who has ever slept with a man or a woman on WhatsApp or on Facebook? You need an address.
Exactly.
Kona, Lutanga, and Julius Nyerere. Meet me there. Meet me at Formula One. Where is it? At Kirinyanga, that one. You need an address. Therefore, without an address, even love cannot take place.
Yeah.
Without land, it's illegal to reproduce. When land was taken away from us, we were castrated even to the point of non-reproduction. Now you ask all these men, how many children do you want to have? 1 or 2. Why? I can't afford. 1 or 2. Why? I can't afford. So it's not an issue of affordability, which has sunk us into poverty. Entertainment, education, health and technology, business and economics. This one is for you, Lumumba. Governance. Governance. The Roman Dutch law is a marine law, which is meant for those who have gone to sea, so that when they come back from sea, their property is safe. I don't know how the Roman Dutch law, which is a marine law, ended up as a law on the land. We as Africans work with the natural law. Isn't it funny that Africans, all of us, most of us were colonized by the British, by the Germans and the Portuguese. We are struggling with the legal framework that does not even have the first item on the law document. Jurisdiction. In which territory does this law work? And the description is simple. Roman Dutch law. So where must it work? In Rome and amongst the Dutch. Keep it there. Now, how do you export and import Roman Dutch law to Africa? It comes with its own religion, comes with its own marriages, comes with its own structures, comes with its own legal frameworks, which have become a nightmare for African governments. They swear themselves out only to discover they cannot change anything. Tied by the very colonial legislative framework. Changing partners every 5 years. Lumumba, you get married this year, 5 years later, goodbye. Another partner, you get married again, 5 years later, goodbye. How come I've never heard the British changing their leader? How come I've never heard Dubai changing their leader? How come I've never heard Singapore changing their leader so often? How come I've never heard China changing their leaders so often? How come I've never heard Russia changing their leaders so often? Don't you know that when you get a good quality leader, you can keep him in power to achieve what he can achieve much more than this diaper changing of administrators every 5 years. You get into a vicious cycle, exchanging hyenas with foxes, and always wondering how come the sheep are disappearing. 1/5 it before he is even finished eating, another one comes hungrier than the one who was there, spending millions. I've seen African politicians, oh, my tongue will turn. My tongue will turn. They have $20-30 million to spend on election. They don't have 1 million to buy beds in a hospital. Huh?
Talk about it.
They don't have 50,000 to fix problems that go to their own houses. But talk about elections and power. Now I know politics is a prostitute of economics. Governance, our own ways of ruling ourselves. Sovereignty is not found in democracy. It is found in our monarchical royal systems, like the Dutch do, like the British do. Have power, land, everything, centralize it at a place where no one can still take it away. Keep it in for the whole nation. Are you not embarrassed as Kenya that all the politicians are buying land? Thousands of hectares of land, which they don't even use. And you wonder, where do they get this money? Because when you look at their salary, if you look at the land which they have bought, you did account more than I do.
I know.
This is not make sure. It doesn't come out together nicely. But our governance protects the thieves and sacrifices the man who stole bread. He's a thief. But the one who steals from the government coffers is an MP. Number 6, agriculture, the green one. How educated are you if you cannot feed yourself? Can't feed yourself. Supermarkets closed, you die. Food is basic to life. Health is wealth. Without good health, even the richest man is poor. And finally, the white represents spirituality. What governs our ethics, our morality, and how we live in this world. Entertainment, education, health and technology, business and economics, governance, agriculture, spirituality. The three ribbons you see on my side of my head, the past, the present, and the future. Look into the past. How did they entertain themselves? How did they educate themselves? How did they heal themselves? How did they do business? You can take the 7 interrogatives and cascade them onto the stick. Then you'll have your 7 by 7, your first 49 questions of how to deal with deconstructing the mind of an African. Then after those 7, then take the 3, past tense, present tense, and future tense, and recascade it, and you start getting into a spiral web of asking the right questions so that you can get the right answers. This is how I want you to think. This is how I want you to feel. This is how I want you to do.
Wow, yes, continue clapping. Thank you very much. We have learned about the 7 pillars of colonization and Maponga's 3 H's. You use your head for? You use your heart for?
Feeling.
And you use your hand for what? Thank you very much, Dr. Maponga Marara. As usual, you have not failed to captivate us and to edutain us, as you so rightly put it. Now, I want to just share, allow me, Joshua Maponga Marara, to share another quotation from Chinua Achebe, one of my favorite authors, who says, "Until the lion learns how to write, every story will glorify the hunter. As Africans, we have been hunted. We have been captured against our own will, and we have been enslaved. That is a true and bitter reality of our past." And Dr. Amos Wilson also says that those who do not know their history are doomed to remain enslaved. In the arena of international diplomacy and our relationship, most African countries' relationship with the Western nations, and notably our terribly abusive relationship with the World Bank, institutions like the World Bank and IMF, the Bretton Woods institutions. These 2 quotations ring very, very true to me. Now, our next speaker is Professor Jean-Emmanuel Pondi. He is a Cameroonian, a notable Cameroonian academic and political scientist known for his expertise in international relations, conflict resolution, and African politics. He has been involved in various scholarly activities and has contributed to discussions around governance, security, economics, and development issues in general in Africa. Professor Pondi has held academic positions at universities and has engaged in research that often addresses the challenges and opportunities facing African nations. He is also known for his participation in conferences such as this one and much bigger ones than this one, and forums focused on political and social issues in the region. Please join me in welcoming with a big round of applause, Professor Jean-Emmanuel Pondi.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Moderator. I thought that Paul Ella was my friend until a few minutes ago, Why do I say that? If you were my friend, indeed, you would not have placed me after Dr. Joshua Maponga to speak, because he has put me in a very embarrassing situation, to say the least. In fact, all that I had to say had been said already, and beautifully so. So the only escape that I have now is to say that I agree with everything that was said, and good afternoon to all of you. But if I did that, I'm sure that I would never be called back again in the Pan-African Awards ceremony in my life, which is unbearable, of course. Ladies and gentlemen, dear Pan-Africanists, I would like to start by paying a public tribute to PLO, Professor Lumumba. I think Kenya, I think Africa, I think the world at large is happy and proud and lucky to have you, Professor Lumumba. It's the first time that I see him today, but I would be lying if I see the first time I see him, because I've been watching him, I've been listening to him, I've been thinking about what he said, and his courage to tell the truth, nothing but the truth. Whether you like it or not, you will listen to that truth. And I think that's a very big asset that you are for Africa. Thank you very much for your work. And I think that it's important that you should hear it from people you didn't know before, but who think of you extremely highly. Thank you so much, Professor Lumumba. Having said that, I think it's important for me to get to my topic, because otherwise I can say the same thing for everyone who's here, of course. Nathalie, everybody else. But I think that I'm here to deliver a speech on a specific topic. The topic is not what I think of my co-panelists. The topic is to talk about the transformation of Africa, and in particular, the change in the balance of power today, which is invariably changing, and everyone is able to actually see that things are not the same today as they were 20 years ago. Something is shifting, something is changing, and something is transforming itself in this world. So I will just do my remarks on two different fields. The first one is the demographic change in the balance of power. The second one will have to do with the economic and financial change in the balance of power in today's world. Let us start with demography. Most people are inclined to see how Africa is projected around the world. Unfortunately, for a long time, many Africans were taken without the will. The only Africans who are in America today are there, and they never asked to be there. That is for sure. We see Africans in India, the Dravidians. We see Africans in the Middle East. We see Africans in Europe and everywhere. But what is not well known is that Africa is home to the entire world and to all the races. It's important to understand that. It is wrong, absolutely wrong, to tell us today that we are discovering the Chinese, we're discovering the Russians, we are discovering, it's not true. In fact, when you look at Africa today as it is, what do you see? You see a kaleidoscope of the entire world. The entire world is present in Africa. We have approximately 80% of Africans who are Black Africans, and then you have white Africans who came in 1642 with the Boers who came from Holland, and then you have the French who came after the Louis XIV banning of Protestants. They came to South Africa. Then you have the British, who came in the 19th century. These people are today indigenous Africans, meaning that the land where they stay, where they live, and where they will die is Africa. Then you take the Chinese. It is absolutely wrong to tell us, as we hear, that the Chinese have come today in Africa to challenge the Westerners. It's not true. The Chinese came in Africa, yes, but in the 19th century. They were brought to Africa through indentured work because of the British. The Chinese came to one spot in particular, which is the Malagasy Republic. In French, it's Madagascar. When you look at Malagasy people, their phenotype, the physical type, you see a clear blend between the blacks and the Asians. And that gives you the Malagasy people, okay? And we are in the 19th century when they came here. So when we hear that the Chinese have just arrived and so on, this does not fit with history, doesn't fit with reality. Then you take the Arabs. The Arabs were not indigenous of Africa. The Arabs came to Africa in the 7th century. How do we know that? Because when they arrived, the first mosque which they built was the Al-Azhar Mosque in Egypt. And then there was in Kairouan, in Morocco, and so on. So the question is, who was there before the 7th century? Not the Arabs, for sure. And yet the pyramids were built 2,500 years before Jesus Christ. So the question of who built the pyramids, we may not answer that, but we know who did not build the pyramids, for sure. Now, when we talk about that, Arabs are whites for the most part. So we have a large proportion of Arabs, around 300 million today. So Africa is home to, of course, Black Africa. And Africa is also home to the entire humanity. When we say that, we mean from the beginning, yes, and I'm happy to speak from the Rift Valley, which is where the cradle of humanity is. It's a big privilege for me to speak from here. And I think it's important for us to have that in our minds, to know that we are the fathers of the entire humanity, and that gives us special responsibilities and special care to the rest of the world. Having said that, today, most people don't see Africa when they talk about globalization. Africa is a globalized continent. Africa is already a globalized continent. What we're seeing now is the increased globalization, meaning that Africa is projecting itself more and more from Africa to the rest of the world. Whereas before, it was the other way around. It was from the rest of the world with people having implications in Africa. For instance, the very sad, very cynical Berlin Conference of November 15, 1884 to February 23rd, 1885. A sinister moment, a sad moment for Africa, a very, very bad memory for us. That is how Africa was seen. That is how Africa was defined. That is how Africa was subordinated. From the outside in, what is happening now is different. We are talking about Africa globalized by having an impact from the inside out. And that is where problems are for many people who are not used to having that dynamics from Africa to the rest of the world. What we, as Pan-Africanists, must tell the world is that whether you like it or not, Africans have the right to actually tell the world the way they see things, the way they want things to go, and the way they were going to have an impact on the world. This is not a war language, it is the language of realism, simply. So, concretely, when we look at the way the demographics in terms of figures are evolving, we see that the tide is on our side. Because in 1950, the 27 European countries that today are in the EU, they were around 15% of the world population. Today, they are 5.9% of the world population. When you take Africa, Africa in the 15th century was around 20% of the world population. At the end of slavery, we were only 9% of the world population. So please don't tell us that we were not depleted of our strongest and of our best. Don't say that, because these figures show exactly the reverse and the contrary. So today, what do we think? What do we see now? Is that the population is growing and is doubling every 50 years or so, approximately. We are, in 1960, we were 250 million Africans. Today, we are 1,400,000,000 Africans. And in 2100, we'll be more than 4 billion Africans. The reverse trend is observable everywhere, worst of all in Japan, where they have already settled for some kind of disappearance, I would say. What does that mean? And I come back to what Joshua was saying. If in 1960 we were 250 million Africans, today we are 1,400,000,000. What does that say about our traditional African medicine? If you go to any village in Africa today, you will not see a hospital, you will not see a pharmacy, you will not see a surgical operation unit. No. What you will see there are people who for thousands of years, using at least the 6,000, 10,000 African traditional medicinal plants, have been able to care for a population. If our medicine was not working, if our medicine was just some kind of, you can say, witchcraft, to take back your expression, you will not be progressing in terms of numbers. You'll be going from important to understand that what we hear about African traditional medicine should be totally looked at from a different angle. And demography is booming. The terms that we hear now, especially in the West, we hear about demographic explosion. But there are many terms like that. Demographic bomb. I think these are war terms. We're talking about a war. This is not the Sunday afternoon picnic sort of phrasing. Because the times are changing. And Africa today is confronted with its reality. When in 2050, one out of every human being will be African. It means that we must measure the extent of our responsibility. We must stop improvising. We must make sure that because of that responsibility, we must plan, we must strategize, and we must look at how not to become forever dependent on others. That is, to me, the meaning of the fact that in 2050, one out of every human being will be Africa. So it means a revival of the way we approach things, and more importantly, the way we approach ourselves, the way we love ourselves, the way we have esteem for ourselves. He or she who hates himself cannot talk about development. It is not possible. So we have to work, and I agree that our educational system is a disaster. It's a disaster because it teaches you exactly the opposite of what it is supposed to teach you. That is to say, autonomy. That is to say, the capacity to solve your problems yourself. The capacity to use your environment in order to draw lessons from what is around you. Most of our educational systems do not do that. What they talk you about is Plato, Aristotle, Rousseau, Shakespeare. Neither Plato, nor Aristotle, nor Shakespeare had one word to say about Africa. Am I right or wrong? You have read all these books. Nothing. So why should we quote them every day in our dissertations, in our speeches, unless and until you speak in Greek or Latin, you are not considered an intelligent person? If what I'm saying is not true, please contradict me. Your state of intelligence is related to the ability of your audience not to understand what you're saying. The least they understand, the better they assume that you are an intelligent person. Ladies and gentlemen, when the population thinks that way, it means that we are in serious trouble. The first thing that we should do is to make sure that we love ourselves, that we are proud of who we are, and that our system of education actually uplifts us and helps us to become better people, more powerful people, more resilient people, and more autonomous people. Because that is the first thing that I wanted to say. The second thing that I want to say now has to do with finances. Ladies and gentlemen, who defines who is rich and who is poor? Who defines what is wealth and what is poverty? What we can say for sure, in 2025, it is not us, the Africans. Who defines the framework of analysis of Africa? If I ask anyone who is here, coming from Nairobi or from Kenya or from any other country, do you know what is the inflation rate of Kenya? The next question, for it to be serious, would be, does your answer come from the IMF or the World Bank? For it to be credible. Kenyan economists, Kenyan statisticians are not better placed in our own minds to say what is inflation rate within Kenya. I don't know whether you can have such an attitude in China. I doubt it very much. So the extroversion of our economic system has become the norm. That is why we are imprisoned in a system in which we are defined and we have not defined ourselves. So the problem is not even the quantities or the numbers. The problem is the context and the conceptual framework itself, which must be rejected. Let me come back to African sociology. Who is rich in Africa and who is poor in Africa? Let me tell you something which I'm sure you will agree with me. It has nothing to do with the amount of money which you have in your pocket. Wealth in Africa is defined according to the extent of the social network which you enjoy. In our villages, our chiefs are not the richest, but they have the most extended social network in the village, and that's what makes them rich. I conducted, as professor, a study on development in Africa, development quote unquote, because even that term was used for the first time, not in philosophy, but in politics, on the 20th of January, 1949, by the President of the United States, when he was talking about America's capacity to come to the help of underdeveloped countries. We are in 1949. So even that term is not ours. When we talk about the third world is a term used or created by someone who is not African. He was a French geographer. Okay. And so on and so forth. So we use those terms, but we didn't create those terms. We didn't invent them. So they don't reflect our reality. So I'll come back to what I was saying about who is rich and who is poor. Joshua was saying a few minutes ago, and I think rightly so, that if I have huge forest lands, as we have not only in Central Africa, but also in Brazil, in which the essence, the different essences are extremely expensive. And those lands belong to the community, because here the unit of social life in Africa is the community, not the individual, which again is a problem with Western economies and so on. If you have all that, you are already rich, extremely rich, but you don't have money, you don't have paper money. If you have copper, diamond, gold, coltan, all of that, 40% of the world reserves are in one unique continent. If you accept that with all that, not only are you poor, but you are poor and most indebted continent on earth, it means that you have a psychological problem and you must be taken to a health facility. Because this is contradictory. It's not possible for someone who is rational to believe that. So the basis and the definition of poverty is not ours. It is external to us. And now I'm going just to give you a very small demonstration. What does the World Bank say? The World Bank says you are poor if you have $2 in your pocket each day. The World Bank and the IMF, which is its fellow accomplice, they always say the same thing, but take it different ways, just in order to confuse you. So, the World Bank and the IMF, or both of them, say you are very poor if you have $1 a day in your pocket. Ladies and gentlemen, tell me in your village, who has $2 per day in his pocket? Who has $1 a day in one's pocket? The answer is nobody. I repeat, nobody. 60, 70%, 75% of the people in the village have neither $2 nor $1. Is it true or false?
Oh.
So for the World Bank, according to their typology, meaning that the way they register, the way they classify, these villages in Africa, these countries are zombies because they don't exist. Yet, people do live. How do they live? They have recourse to something which is fundamental. It is the economic, cultural approach, which is the barter. I have a hen, I have a chicken, I have a ghost, you have cassava, you have millet, you have sorghum, we exchange. I have palm wine, you have, I don't know, whatever, we exchange. That is how most people live in our villages. And I know many people personally who spend years without touching money. But for the IMF and the World Bank, it's not possible. Because in Washington, D.C., on 8th Street, where they are, you cannot live one day without money in your pocket. In fact, the American law says that if you don't have $10 in your pocket, the police is entitled to arrest you because you're a delinquent. So you understand that the cultural dimension is fundamental. What they draw and their laws are not universal. They are not universal. So I just wanted to give that example. Now, we Africans from Africa and from the diaspora, we must understand that the time for us to look outward and to tell what we think is arriving. It means that we have thought through before. It means that we now take the time to reflect and to strategize. It's important for us to strategize. What will Africa and at large be in 50 years? What will it be in 100 years? This is fundamental because it's like a chess game. Before your adversary plays, you must know already 2 games ahead where you are going to play and how you are going to play. And I think this is very important. Now, as far as economics and finance is concerned, the BRICS seem to me one of the ways out for our predicament. And I use the term predicament because many of us, especially in the French-speaking countries, or so-called French-speaking countries, have been trapped in a monetary system that cannot bring us joy and fulfillment. It is not possible. The way that murderous construction was made is simply indecent. Now we are seeing it, and now I'm sure people are looking for ways out. The BRICS are becoming, in my view, the way out. Why do I say that? First of all, the name BRICS gives you an idea of what we're talking about. Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. We are no longer in the prison of the IMF and the World Bank. These countries have a lot to offer, but these countries are there also for their own good, which is normal. But at least it gives you an alternative to the trappings of where we used to be. So it's important, therefore, to understand that there was a change, an important change. Up to now, the BRICS constituted 40% of the wealth of the world. With the introduction of new countries, such as Saudi Arabia, such as Argentina, such as Egypt and Ethiopia for Africa, they've come now to 46%, which is huge. So it means that what is certain is that the rates will be different, can be negotiated, and can be for our own good in particular. I will not stay for too long because I think otherwise it would be a sign of disrespect for my fellow co-panelists. But I just want maybe to conclude this financial aspect by saying that negotiations that Africans must now have vis-a-vis the outside world is for the Africans to be very clear, to say to our partners that we will negotiate for the best interest for our people, all the time and always. Those who come to us, we must have a win-win situation, otherwise we sign nothing. We must be able to do that when we are in the balance of power that is now creeping towards our advantage. We need partners, but we must tell the partners the truth, which is that we are not prepared to repeat the same catastrophic experiences which we have endured for the last 500 years. So it's important for us to be clear. And in our negotiation tactics, we must run away from semantics. Are we for the multilateral? Are we from the unilateral? And so on and so forth. What we must be for is results which are in favor of our people and of our people first and foremost. Therefore, what I suggest is to have a mix of all this, meaning we must have a multilateral approach when we deal with the United Nations and when, of course, it is within the Organization of African Unity, which have become since 2002, July 9th, have become the African Union. So we can talk about multilateral approach. Then we can use the unilateral approach. Yes, you've heard me. When we talk about relations directly with China, Russia, Brazil, India, Turkey, and so on, that we can do that. We can use the minilateral approach, meaning that it's a one subject that interests us, and that has been used during the Ukraine war, where we chose not to support those who were thinking that we'll support them automatically and without thinking. We chose not to support Western Europe at that particular time, what I call the minilateral stand. Okay? Then we have a polylateral stand as well, meaning that all the summits, Africa, United States, Africa, Brazil, Africa, Japan, Africa, Turkey, these are the polylateral approaches which we must use. We should not continue to talk about abstractions, whatever our choice. The goal is the same: how to make sure that we maximize the interest of the African people, For those of you, I close by that, for those of you who believe that maybe this is not possible, or think that we're just talking but it has not been experimented by other countries, I have this news for you. Mrs. Madeleine Albright, who used to be Secretary of State of the United States between 1997 and 2001, when she was asked about unilateralism or multilateralism, this is what she said. We are multilateral when we want. We are unilateral when we must. And I think that pragmatism is what must henceforth characterize the African. We must use all the capacity of our soft power to make sure that we reach the benefit of the African population. It is not understandable that a continent so rich, so blessed, so affluent, should be still categorized as being among the poorest and worst of all, the most indebted continent on earth. So that's why I'm saying that today the balance of power is shifting, but the key to whether the youth, which constitute, I think, 500 million youth today in Africa, whether that will become an asset or a problem rests on our educational system, which must incapacitate them, give them the power to transform, to be good engineers, and to have the pride not to be simple beggars who have normalized begging as a profession. So this is what I wanted to say, and I want to thank you very much for your kind attention.
Wow, I don't know whether I heard. I don't know whether I had an applause, a proper round of applause for Professor Mumbi. I have to say I was absolutely stunned, transfixed by some of the things that he said. And I have made a decision from now on not to accept definitions about me, about my continent, that do not reflect my reality. So there are some words that we use every day in our vocabulary, and these are definitions that have just been imposed on us. And I have listed about 30 words that I would stop using. Of course, one of them is third world countries. That one is gone, out. I also want to say, when Professor Pondi talked about population explosion and demographic bomb, truly, it is war language, and it reminded me of a book that was published recently, I think maybe about 5 years ago, by a Pan-Africanist. He's an African-American called Ayo Kibathi, and the book, I think you can get it online, is War on the Horizon. And you can imagine if you link it to those words that they use about population explosion, which refer to the African population explosion, will come to the same conclusions that I have come to. I also want to note something that really struck me when Professor Pondi was speaking. He spoke about how our population has grown, and yet we do not have doctors in most of our villages. I love spending time in the kitchen, and I also have to say I am a farmer. I live in a community of farmers, 600 farmers, near at the foothills of Mount Kenya in a town called Nanyuki. Our food is our medicine. That's why in rural areas, people are very healthy, because we eat our own food and we use our own medicine. So these are very, very profound truths that I have today, and I really thank Professor Pondi for helping us understand the demographic and economic and financial shifts that are happening right now. Thank you. I would now like to welcome a lioness in this area of Pan-Africanism. She is a true lioness. I happen to understand a little bit of French, so obviously I have subscribed to her channel, and I watch everything, I listen to everything that she says. And to me, the way I would capture her spirit and what she actually does, there is one quote, actually there's two quotes, and let me say two, by Angela Davis. Angela Davis said, "I don't have to be a politician to be a voice for the people." She also said, "I am no longer accepting the things I cannot change. I am changing the things I cannot accept." But most importantly, she captures, what she does captures what Bob Marley said. You can fool some people sometimes, but you can't fool all the people all the time. And I can tell you what this woman has done. She has exposed lies, and she is nothing like a fool, and she does not suffer fools either. Natalie Yam is a Cameroonian activist and political figure known for her strong advocacy for African sovereignty and economic independence. She is recognized for her vocal stance on issues related to social justice, anti-colonialism, and the empowerment of African nations. Natalie Yam has been involved in various movements and initiatives aimed at addressing the political and economic challenges facing Africa. She has also gained attention for her participation in discussions and debates on the role of Africa in the global arena, focusing on the importance of self-determination and sustainable development. Through her activism, she seeks to inspire change and promote unity among African nations. And I can tell you, the reason I'm standing here today, one of the main reasons, is because I've been so motivated and inspired by her. Please give her a rousing welcome.
Jumbo.
Oh.
Every time I come, I have to adjust the microphone because I'm so short. Yeah. Jumbo, my beautiful people from Kenya, from Nairobi, from Africa, and from the diaspora. It's an honor for me to be here today in this university, and I really appreciate seeing you here around, ready to push the conversation forward. I'm usually fluent in English on Mondays. So since it's Friday today, I would like to beg your pardon for the mistake I will make. Sorry. Most of you are here because you are passionate about Africa. You know that things must change. You know Africans are not where they should be, neither in the countries we inherited from colonization, nor on the continental level or on the global stage. But every time I travel, there are always one or two Secret Service agents in the room, because according to them, I'm a threat to the interest of their masters. So let me say habari to them also, wherever they are. Okay. We've heard enlightening contributions so far. And I would like to thank Paul Elan and the team of the Pan-African Awards for organizing this conference, as well as my co-panelists who were sharing their knowledge with us. But let me now try to add my little brick on the wall of the 21st century Pan-Africanism. We are in a very interesting geopolitical moment. The NATO-Russia war in Ukraine, Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, kicking the French army, the French media, and the French diplomats out of their country and creating a new confederation, the AES, the Alliance of the Sahel States, the genocide of Palestinians in the Middle East, and the return of a sheriff to the White House. Donald Trump's return is shaking global politics. He is slapping hefty tariffs on his allies. He is demanding that they foot the bill for the American protection. And he is sidelining Europe to zero in on China and the Indo-Pacific region. His America First agenda is forcing Europe to rethink its strategies. And that could spell opportunity or disaster for Africa. So I want to start with having a look at what I call the Panama Canal playbook, because for me it's a very stark lesson for Africa. I'm sure you heard that earlier this month, something happened in America after Trump's return. The Panama Canal, the USA paid $40 million to a French company that had started the project but failed. They paid Panama a mere $10 million upon sealing the deal. And what's interesting in that deal is it was signed between the then Secretary of State of the United States under Theodore Roosevelt, who was John Hay, and a guy called Philippe Bunau-Varilla, a French guy, an engineer. He was not mandated by the Panama people, but he was the one signing the deal for Panama. Sounds like familiar, isn't it? Yeah. So they then spent a decade, so between 1904 and 1914, to carve the canal. And then for the next 85 years, they paid Panama $250,000 annual rent. It's a pittance. So at some times, obviously, Panama's authority were fed up. So they renegotiated under Carter's rule, that was 1977, reclaiming the control and the ownership on December 31st, 1999. Fast forward to 2024. Panama's netted a whooping $3.45 billion from the canal in only 1 year. Can you compare it to the $250,000 that they were getting before? I mean, let that sink in. Trump now says that the US should never have given Panama back its canal. What is his logic? He said, we built it, we own it. And beside that, we don't want China around, anywhere around, benefiting from our past investments. Now, apply that to Africa. Think about it. Colonial powers named a lot of our countries, of our capital cities, our rivers, our streets, our mountains. They built our railways, ports, roads, bridges to serve their own interest. But with Western economies in trouble right now, Europe could use Trump's logic to justify reclaiming its Africa creation. I've put the quote on creation, arguing that they don't accept being kicked out while China, while Russia, while Turkey, while Iran are benefiting from their past investment. And make no mistake, Donald Trump will approve if we are not acting fast. Another thing happened in February, 5 days after the Panama Canal thing. It was on February 7th. Donald Trump cut the US aid to South Africa. I hate aid, so I was quite happy about that, but I'm just stating the facts. So he cut US aid to South Africa. He threatened to kick South Africa out of the AGOA. And he offered refugee status to Afrikaners, the white farmer, the descent of the Boers colonizer. Why did he do that? Because South Africa passed a land reform bill to fix some apartheid era injustices. And obviously, he also did it because he wanted to punish South Africa to have taken Israel to court, and also for being a member of the BRICS. I mean, so he doesn't really like the BRICS. I'm sure you've noticed. This isn't just interference. It is a blatant racist, imperialist, white supremacist power move. But you know what's worse? The silence of African leaders. You know, when Trump wanted to buy, or let's say grab Greenland, that's how he started. Europe fought back. They issued statements, communiques, they had meetings, they were quite vocal about that. But when Trump defends apartheid era privileges and wants to have even its revival, Africa says nothing. Not a word, not a country, not a regional institution. Nobody officially took position on that. Western powers are desperate. They know that without Africa, they have no future. I'll try to use an image. Europeans are now stuck in the middle of a river, sitting in a leaking boat. They have two choices. Keep paddling towards the guy who put the hole in the boat in the first place and who is waiting for them with a loaded gun, or turn back to where they originally stole the boat. And well, I guess for everybody the math is quite simple. What you did once, you can do it again. You stole it once, you can steal again. That's the much easier part. And it's easy because the gunman, the mad redhead gunman or blonde-haired gunman over there, is telling them, okay, if you want to turn back, you have my blessing. I will even cover you with my gun to make sure that nothing happens to you on the way. And what are we doing while these guys are coming back with war in their eyes? Because that's what it is. Because for them, it's a matter of survival. It's life or death. And it should also be for us. So what are we doing? We're on the beach. We're dancing. We're singing. We are flirting. Hey. We are sleeping. Oh no, let me say, we are praying. You even have some groups who are preparing some traditional dances, printing t-shirts, preparing banners to welcome the swimmers. That's what we are doing. Instead of preparing for war, instead of sharpening our weapons, making new ones, ordering more, instead of building barricades, strategizing, forming alliances, mobilizing our armies, our intelligence, not just to deal with the swimmers, but also to keep the gunman on the other shore in check. Did you see the endurance it took for just the first 30 days of Trump's presidency? I mean, on the day-to-day, it's a month.
Yeah.
I'll say it again. The next 4 years, under that geopolitical premises, the next 4 years are a golden opportunity for us to break free, to lock in our sovereignty, and to launch ourselves forward. I also hate the word development. I'd rather speak of progress because it's not coming from us. But we need to move, and we need to move fast. We need to work together. We need to align our economic interests. The AES, the Alliance of the Sahel States, is showing the way, but we need a real common policy for gold, a common policy for oil, a common policy for gas, for uranium. No more giving foreign powers the chance to pit us against each other. The West and even the East need lithium, cobalt, coltan, gold, uranium, rare earth. But we also need something. We need roads. We need shipping companies. We need airlines. We need plants. We need railways. We need cheap energy. So we must keep part of our resources to build our own nations and our own industries. The rest, we sell on our terms, and we sell it over there on their market. They will not be allowed to come back and grab it here on our soil while they are fueling terrorism in Sahel, in Cameroon, in Nigeria, or they are financing wars between Congo and Rwanda. Speaking of that, people keep asking me to comment on the Great Lakes situation. I'm not doing it. I refuse. Why would I do that? Kagame and Tshisekedi are both stuck in the same foolishness. Instead of talking co-development, they and their supporters are busy insulting and killing each other over tribe, over language, over the size of the nose, as if someone can change it. You are born with it. You can't change it. Meanwhile, China figured out a long time ago something very crucial. If you pull your neighbors up, the whole region will thrive. Congo's wealth isn't just in North Kivu, South Kivu, Ituri. What have Kinshasa's elite done to develop the rest of it? Why aren't the DRC, Rwanda, Uganda, Tanzania, Burundi, Kenya, why aren't they sitting down to forge a joint strategy for coltan, for cobalt, for niobium, for tungsten? Why not set up shared factories, shipping fleets, refineries, plants, center of excellence? I'll say it again and louder for the people in the back. If we don't break free from the cages Westerners put us in, if we don't slam the door on, to speak for the Francophone part, on the CFA Franc, on the Francophonie, on the France-Afrique Summit, I've heard there's one scheduled in this town, very town of Nairobi, next year. I hope after listening to everybody here in 2026, you will be vigilant and you will address that rubbish nonsense that is going to be organized here with the approval of Kasongo. We need to slam doors on the ICC, on the WHO, on the Paris Climate Agreement, on so-called development aid. And I would even go forward on the UN, on the complete UN system, because it was built to maintain colonization on us. If we don't come together to forge a real vision, and speaking of a vision, I mean, what you said earlier, when, I don't know if some of you had the opportunity to go and travel to China and talk to the people over there. But anytime you go to China, and it's not only in Beijing, you can go to villages, to other towns. and you talk to the people, you will notice something. Each one of them knows where China wants to be in 100 years. They know. They have a vision and they passed it down to the people. We don't even know where we're going to be tomorrow. And we are competing on the same field with people that know where they're going to be in 100 years. C'est pas bon pas bon. This real vision that we need to have, these shared interests and the common policies, we shouldn't expect them from the AU, from the ECOWAS, from the CEMAC, who are all corrupt to the core and serving foreign masters. But we must think new institutions that work for us. If we don't do all that, then the next 4 years will be our greatest danger. It will mark the return of a full-blown, violent, permanent recolonization. Look at Europe under Trump. They don't even get a say in what happens on their own soil. And I heard your date. I think the day after tomorrow, it will be 140 years. So in Berlin, in 1884 until I think you said it's February 23, 1885. In Berlin, Europeans decided the fate of Africa and its border without Africans. But, you know, there's so much irony into watching what's happening now. Because in 2025, in Riyadh, the fate of Europe and its border is being discussed without the European. How do they call that? What do they say? Karma is a witch with a bee. Let me be polite. Karma is a witch with a bee. Yes. But you need also to fathom what's happening while this is happening in the world. We have African leaders letting those idiots decide what is happening in Africa. Europe is just as enslaved as we are, but our leaders let them act like our masters. What is wrong with them? We shall not tolerate that. Right now, doing nothing means returning to chains. Right now, Africa is at risk of becoming the battleground for Trump's proxy war against China after he smoothed things over with Russia. Right now, international law is dead. Doesn't exist anymore. We've seen it for the past years. The only rule is might makes right. And only together we are strong. All the other panelists have said it before. Africa has everything that it needs, except for the right people in the right leadership position and the right mindset. The AES is a first step, but the rest must get to work and fix their countries. And it must be done now. And since I'm here in Nairobi, I'm counting on you to stay vigilant, to keep pressure on decision makers. And I know you can do it because I've supported the Gen Z protest here last year from the road. Yes, yes, yes. Put them under pressure and kick them out of power. Kick them out of power if they would rather serve foreign interests than fight for Africa and for its people. And we also need to create a Pan-Africanist network, because we can't let just the politicians decide We can't just let it in their hand. And we need to interconnect. We are coming from West and Central Africa, and we meet some of you for the first time. I mean, obviously, I followed the Professor Lumumba, Joshua, Jean-Emmanuel, well, as family. So I know them, but we need to interconnect because there are stuff that we know that we can share with you, and there are stuff that you've experienced that you can also share with us, and we need to attain a very ambitious goal in a very small window of opportunity. And we shall also include our brothers and sisters from abroad, because Africa is not just the continent, the motherland, but we also have our brothers and sisters from Latin America, from the Caribbean countries, from Martinique, from Guadeloupe, from New Caledonia. So everybody, when you return home today, beware, barbarians are at the gate. And as Joshua was saying, let's think, let's feel, let's do, let's unite. Thank you very much.
You cannot mistake the roar of a lioness, can you? I just want to say that I failed to mention when I talked about the book War on the Horizon by Ayoki Mafi, I did challenge him and I said, is the war actually in the horizon, or is the war with us right here, right now? Because if you think about modern warfare, when you actually think about modern warfare, one of the most powerful tools that is used by the West against Africa is economic warfare. And I dare say, and I stand corrected by the professors and the distinguished guests here, we are at war. Maybe we don't actually want to say that, but the fact is we are already at war. But Natalie Yamb also told us that we have a golden opportunity in this world of chaos, all those things that are happening around us and to us, to break free, establish our sovereignty, and move forward, progress. That is what she has said. We do have an opportunity. It is for us to decide. When it comes to those who are leading, but mainly misleading us as Africans, we need to make sure that we have people leading us that care about us and put our interests first and not their interests. As they say, we have already in Kenya, we say we have democracy, but most of us know we have tumbocracy, isn't it? We know we have tumbocracy. And that is actually what Natalie Yamb was talking about. And she told us to be vigilant. She used the analogy of a leaking boat. The Western nations are in a leaking boat, and the easiest option for them is to come back and steal another boat. The boat in this case represents not just the minerals under the ground, but also the land itself. But even more importantly, us, our bodies, our minds, and especially the youth. Because if you think through that analogy, it is very profound in terms of representing the real and present danger that we face as Africans. I think that was a very powerful call to action, and I really, really want us to thank Natalie Yamb once again. Thank you. I now want to introduce, and I had said this before, but I want to take it back. I'm sorry. I had said our very own PLO Lumumba. But as we sat here, it was clear to me that PLO Lumumba does not belong to us Kenyans. He belongs to every African on this continent and in the diaspora. And because we are Africans, we believe in communalism and we believe in sharing. We do. And we are so, so proud, pro.Lumumba, to have you here with us. And we will share you. Should I say something?
Thank you very much. I've done that, number one, because you are tired. And I'll take no more than 5 minutes.
No.
Thank you very much. Let me start by acknowledging that the theme of this gathering has been properly captured by Professor Mary, Professor Jean-Emmanuel, my good friend Joshua, and my very good sister Natalie. And it adds no value to repeat rather than to reiterate. Mary told us we must reclaim our spirituality. Today, when you travel across the continent of Africa, we are suffering and laboring under spiritual confusion. We are the most religious continent on earth, and I want us to make a distinction between spirituality and religion. I've said it before, and I say it again, we cannot achieve through theology what is to be done through technology. We can pray and fast all we want, but the divine instruction was by the sweat of thy brow. So we must remember that we as a continent must do that. And that means that our resources, human politically or otherwise. It is a situation that must not be allowed to continue. We must not be dictated to. I heard you, Joshua. And you, Jean-Emmanuel, I heard you when you are telling us that when they tell us we are poor African economists. Look to what McKinsey is telling us, what Moody's is telling us, what is happening in the New York Stock Exchange, not what is happening in the stock exchange in Nairobi or Johannesburg. We must change our ways. And we will only be heard, and the law of the jungle is what governs human relations. Survival of the fittest and the dying of the least suitable. That is still the law. I've said it before and I say it again, that we cannot be a continent whose agenda is controlled by others. And I heard you when you said we must define who we are. Who are we? Who are we? And I heard you, Natalie, telling us that we must know what we want. I do not know whether it's we Africans who misunderstood Jesus Christ, that we must live like the birds of the air, so we don't think about tomorrow. We must think about tomorrow strategically. You go to Korea, they know what they want 50 years from today. You go to Japan, they know what they want. You go to China, they know what they want. But in Africa, what we want are the next elections, so that we can replace a set of hyenas with another set of hyenas. We must stop that. And the beauty of the situation, as I conclude, is this, that there is an awakening in the continent of Africa. This is the beauty. The beauty is that today, when I listen to the Prime Minister of Barbados, Mia Motley, she speaks to me. When I listen to our kith and kin in Jamaica, in St. Kitts and Nevis, in Martinique, in Guadeloupe, they speak to me. When I listen to our kith and kin in Costa Rica, the Garifuna, in Nicaragua, in Colombia, there is a coming together of our people wherever they are. And that tells me that something new is happening. When I hear the invocation of the names of individuals that had been forgotten, when I hear the moderator reminding us of the oracles of the past, like Bob Marley, and their exhortation to us, of Marcus Garvey, of Sylvester Williams, of John Henry Clark, all those in the diaspora, it makes me happy. So we have agonized for too long. The time is to organize now. And the beauty is that we know what is happening. All these good men and women, some of whom I'm meeting for the first time, I met you a long time ago, courtesy of technology. If they could do it in 1950, in those difficult years when there was no communication, how much more can we do it? And you know, Jean-Emmanuel, you know, Joshua Maponga, you know, Mary Getui, you know, Natalie Young, you, Joshua, when we sat and you talked of the 7 things, the 7 spirits that continue to hold us down. What I ask of you, young men and women, is that you must exorcise those ghosts. It pains me today when I see that English and Spanish football is what preoccupies us, and cheap Mexican soap opera, La Mujer de mi Vida, is what preoccupies us. We must liberate ourselves, because the mind is the standard of the man. When you see what is happening in the Sahel, it tells you that there is a new spirit that is coming about in Africa. That spirit which I've seen in the last few months, the French kicked out of Mali, of Niger, of Burkina Faso, of Chad, and even the reluctant La Côte d'Ivoire. Something is happening. My sister, something is happening. The African Union, which we know is a toothless bulldog, will give it a new set of teeth, that it may allow the continent to speak with one voice. Already I know out of Lusaka, Zambia, a new pressure group called the African People's Union has been created. And the idea is that we are going to put fire under the bottom of existing African institutions, to put it literally and metaphorically, that they may not rest. The time is now. And I believe this Pan-African spirit, and you, Paul, you have done a good thing. You have done a good thing because you have put us together, and this conversation is the conversation that will continue. And we must ensure that we create our own things. Ladies and gentlemen, it can be done. It must be done. And we are the very same who are going to do it. Our duty is to stand up and to ensure that we keep on shouting and doing, because action which is unwedded to words is without merit. It is John Henry Clark who famously said, "You can say black is beautiful, but what is black beauty without black power?" I'm suggesting to us that we must be beautiful and powerful at once. And we must choose our friends carefully. In other words, as was said in 90, we are looking neither east nor west. We are looking forward, and we are going to do it. This Africa that I see is a good Africa. And it reminds me of the words of Ngugi wa Thiong'o in his book, The River Between, when he tells his character, Wayaki, go ye and learn the ways of the white man, but come back and use it for our good. It reminds me of the words of Chinua Achebe when he says that there are young suckers that will grow when the old bananas die. You are the young suckers. Africa is going to be great. Thank you very much.
After pro.Lumumba has spoken, there's really nothing to say. I think he has said it all and summarized everything that we had today. We've come to the end of our presentations from our speakers, and I would like us to give them a standing ovation before we move on. And applaud them. Welcome. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We are so humbled, we are so honored. Thank you very much. Because it is late, we are going to go through the rest of the program quite quickly. We have a Q&A session coming. I will be coming downstairs, and I will only take just 2 or 3 questions so that we can wind up today's event. But before we do that, we do have a special guest among us. And we consider these guests our friends. And when an African tells you that they are your friend, you are indeed our friend. We have the head of Sputnik Africa. Her name is Olga Lisogor, and she is accompanied by Victoria Danova. And Olga is going to come and say a few words, and maybe share a video, and then we are going to go straight into the Q&A question and close this event. Thank you. Welcome, Olga.
We'll start with this video because I'm sure that many of you have heard about Sputnik, but not everybody knows what we're about. So let's see the video. Well, we needed a sound.
Global multimedia news and radio broadcast. We operate in over louder across the globe. We will continue telling the untold.
Almost impossible to speak after this group of people. That's why I will not take more than a couple of minutes. Well, first of all, I want to thank the organizers of this outstanding event for the invitation, because it's a really great honor and we are the only Russian media that provides content in Amharic. We just came from Ethiopia, Victoria, where we opened the biggest office of Russian media in this part of the continent, and we're planning to provide content in more local African languages. We want to do that because we respect their identity, their culture, the traditions of the countries that we're working in. But honestly speaking, I still see the continent, the many countries of the continent, as the colonists of the Western media outlets that prefer to hide the half of the truth, that don't want to let the people to receive the alternative view. And that's the main purpose of Sputnik, to give to the audience the opportunity to decide themselves what to think, and who is right and who is wrong. That's why the events like this one are so important, and I think that only working together, making joint projects and the collaborations, we can make our voices, the voices of Global South, louder. So let's work together and struggle. Thank you.
Do you mind taking 1 second? Because there's something we want to finish with. All right, now, thank you very much, Olga, for that presentation. We are so grateful that you're here with us, and we're so grateful that you've supported this event. I would like to invite Paulela. He has a few words of appreciation to share with you.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. It's a privilege and a great pleasure to meet you all in this hall. And we've just listened to those brilliant speakers, and I thought I knew them, but tonight I discovered that I didn't know them, because they are so deep, they are so relevant in their speeches, and it's a great privilege, as I already said. Thank you, and I want you to have a big applause for yourself for being here, because you are the future of Kenya, you are the future of Africa, you are the future of all humanity. And it's very good for youth to remember that it's important to enjoy and to party, but it's most important to remember that you need to nurture your brains, and that's what you are here, and that's what Pan-African Awards is all about. Celebrating Africa, celebrating its icons, and celebrating all the partnerships that help us to fight the good fight for that noble cause that is Pan-Africanism. And this is the reason why I can't leave our friends from Russia. I will invite you also, Victoria, to come up, please, because they traveled from very, very far. Do you remember where Russia is? It's not just close to here, it's very far. And they decided to come here because Pan-Africanism talks to them. And now, according to what they are doing for Africa and for Pan-Africanism in partnership with us, we can't let them go without not only saying, but also giving. You deserve the Pan-African Awards of the best partnership for Africa. Give them a big applause. And then, this is the Pan-African Awards of the best partnership with Africa of the year. Clap us for me and keep doing the good job. You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you. And the last thing, we have another one who would like to have some gifts for the speakers. He's a student from where? Come up. It's just a few seconds. He has some gifts. He has been so touched by your speeches that he don't want to let you go without saying thanks with a gift. So, Theophile, where are you from?
I'm from Nigeria.
Yeah.
I am a graduate from this university, from the Department of Philosophy. It is a great honor to have you all on this stage. On behalf of the Department of Philosophy, I want to say thank you for your insights, thank you for your time, and thank you for your invaluable contributions to the development of our great continent. You are sowing seeds which will reap great fruits in the near future. Thank you very much. So I have this gift for you. It is just a very simple token of the department's appreciation of your presence in our university. So the first one is for you, Mr. Paul.
I'm honored. Thank you very much.
So it is a book, it is a storybook for children titled The Amazing Tale of Wanjiru and Wallace, which I intend to use to impart the moral value of obedience to parents. Thank you very much.
Are you the author? Clap for Theophil, please. We have amazing students here in Korea. He doesn't want to miss it.
Okay.
Theophil, thank you very much. I'd like you to stay and ask your question. Yes.
Hey guys. What's up? What's up?
Okay, we've now come to the last session, the question and answer session. Please make sure your questions are written. Do not come and make up your question when I give you the mic. Theophil is going to be asking the first question. This is Theophil from Nigeria. Thank you for your generosity. I am challenged. Kenyans, people challenged. Now, I would like the following to please line up and come up ready with your questions. After Theophil, we're going to have Jospa Kasereka from Congo. We are then going to have Brother Sidika from the United States. We are then going to be followed. He'll be followed by Andrea Malila, also Congolese from Congo. And then we shall have Stephen Tombe from South Sudan. Please come make your way up and just stand behind me so that we are quick with this last section. And then we shall have Stephen Lokani from Kenya, Freshia Wamboi from Kenya, Dominic Wanjao from Kenya, Tom Jero from Kenya, and lastly, Tracy Musolita from Kenya. Now, there are other people who wanted to ask questions, but I will leave it to our guests. And I think, you know, they have really, really done their best to stay with us so long, so please pardon us. I also want to mention before we close the session that for some of our French-speaking guests, namely Professor Jean-Emmanuel Pondy and for Nathalie Young, they are on social media. They are on Facebook, they are on YouTube. If you search for them, you will find them. They also do speak in English, and sometimes you can get subtitles and captions so that you can follow what it is they're saying. Please, please follow them, because they just have brought us so much richness and so much wealth of knowledge. Do not forget to follow them as you follow PLO, Lumumba, and Joshua Maponga Marara. That one, everyone knows. Okay, so to your question, Theophil, one question, please, my individual. Keep it short and direct. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My question is directed to Lumumba. What are your thoughts on the decision of the current US administration to freeze US aid funding? And in your opinion, what should be the proper response of African governments to this development? Thank you.
They ask all the questions. All right. Okay, next.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you. It was a great honor being part of this, listening to our elders. Thank you. Okay, I have a comment. It's more of a comment than a question. My name is Jospa Kasereka. I'm from Democratic Republic of Congo. And Goma is my hometown. we are in a situation where we are living a crisis that, as from Goma, we have a different perspective on whatever is going on, and the people from outside, they have a different perspective on what is going on. There is a narrative circulating right now on shape of noses, the way I can call her my mom, Natalie said. It's because there is a narrative that wants people to think like that. I was born immediately 1 year after this was started in 1998. I think we are aware of that. It was not the same narrative. It was more of a problem that started in 1994. And since then, the narrative has been circulating. The bigger opinion knows that we are fighting over the shape of nose, but it's not the case. I'm from Goma. I was born and raised in Goma. We have never had such an issue. I came to listen and to hear people talking about that when I left the country. But home, we know there is something else that people are fighting for. I wanted to speak out because outside we know something that is not really what is happening. And inside, people are just dying. The consequences inside and outside are different. Outside, countries are going forward, developing, but inside, what is happening? I've spent here in the last 1 month, one of the worst time of my life. Okay. It's very hard. It's very hard. But I wanted to say, what is going on in Congo need to be spoken differently, and we need to really know what is going on from the people who are living there, not people from outside. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Andrea Malilo. I'm also from Congo. Thank you for this opportunity and insightful discussion with an Africanist. And I'm also grateful to be here. My name, as I said, my name is Andrea Malilo from Congo. I was born in Democratic of Congo. I belong to the Bem ethnic group from South Kivu, specifically from a place called Nundu Kaboke. I left Congo when I was 12 years old. I came to Kenya, where I continued my educations and complete high school with a good grade of B. As a Congolese youth and a young-minded, deeply troubled by the ongoing situation in my country, particularly concerning the M23 rebels who are attempting to overthrow President Tshisekedi government. My question is that, what strategy can Pan-Africanism use to bring peace to Congo? How can African leaders unite and help President Tshisekedi expel the all M23 rebels from Congo without having hidden agenda to exploit Congo's resources? As we all study history about Laurent Désiré Kabila, what he did. So it is what that affecting us today, and also our dictator, Mobutu Sese Seko Ngwendo wa Zabanga. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. I'm Stephen Tombewane, and I'm from South Sudan. So I just want to ask a question regarding this forum that is based on African development and progress. And as we heard from the speakers, they were speaking about African, it's also African being the global continent based on the youngest population. Actually, that's what I wanted to term. Now, when having African biggest or having Africa youngest population globally, and still we export actually our young talents or young Africans to work for other continents instead of working for Africans. Now my question is, what policy or initiative should be implemented in Africa so to empower the young entrepreneurs and reduce the level of unemployment? Thank you.
Peace, brothers and sisters. I appreciate you being here. The energy is way up in me right about now. I watch
Keep your grandpa is here.
Brother Siddiqui from America. I represent, doing Garvey as well as 1212 movement here.
Your grandpa is here.
Me being a kidnapped African, the first Africans that was taken off of the continent, it's very important that we, of course, are returned. We should be given an opportunity to be returned. That's part of revitalizing Africa and its greater story.
Your grandpa is here.
Foundation, due to the fact the brother was speaking earlier, speaking on the fact that Africa was depleted and some of the greatest minds and bodies was taken up out of here. I was wondering, due to the fact Pan-Africanism was kind of established in America, Pan-Africanism was established, how important is it that us kidnapped Africans participate in the development back into the African continent? It's a great thing that President Ibrahim Traoré is what he's doing. He's offering us kidnapped Africans citizenship under Dr.arikhana's organization, ADDI. I believe that individuals like yourselves who speak in this Pan-Africanism is a beautiful thing. We're not ever represented. When you talk colonialism, the colonialism is only spoken based on the African continent. It's not being spoken on us Africans being taken out of the continent. All of it started from us being removed, and then the colonialism started. Do you feel it's very important for us kidnapped Africans to be a part of this revitalization or the development back into the African continent? This brother here. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. How are you, everyone? Good evening. My name is Joseph Karanja. I'm a local. I'm from Nyeri, Kenya. So, as you see, I have this red and black and green flag. I can see my brother there from Zimbabwe. We met, it's very interesting because he met us at the roadside in Rongai with my brother, Baba Sadiki. We were preaching Pan-Africanism and we were calling people to set the solidarity alarm, like a daily reminder for all Africans, those who are at home and those who are abroad. And he happened to like it. You are talking about Ubuntu. Yeah, it's Ubuntu Solidarity Alarm. And he is from the United States. He has set the alarm. He's from Zimbabwe. He has set the alarm. I have also set the alarm. We have many Africans who have set the alarm. So it acts like
It's
our
questions. We don't have questions.
It's a way of unity. So my question was,
you can hear they're asking obvious questions,
to make all Africans on the continent and outside set the Ubuntu Solidarity Alarm. Thank you.
And time limit too.
Good evening. My name is Frisia Wangoi. I'm a student here at Choir, and my question is, just two big ones. First of all, the wonderful women here is, when you burst forth and go after what you want, do you lose the quote-unquote value of being a woman, of staying at home and nurturing, caring for your home, or can you keep it and still fulfill what you are called for life? And the other one is, how can someone who, for me, talking vocally and speaking up is considered being a misfit where I come from. In my home, you're a rebel, so you can speak. So how can you burst forth in our community like Kenya, where you are told by our parents, you have to keep quiet, you have to listen to what you're being told, don't rebel, just obey. How can you burst and fulfill it?
Habari zenu. I think I'll identify myself as Tracy, daughter of Sagina. And my question goes straightforward to the most basic form of togetherness, which is family and marriage. We speak so much of what we should do differently in countries, but that's way too big. We should first focus on what we can amend amongst families before we focus on the countries and all that. So my question begs to ask, what is it that we have lost about the system of legalizing marriage as we were in the process of trying to gain favor amongst the oppressor? Maybe I can clarify a little bit. How can we change the marriage system in Kenya to better allow our African leaders to legalize our marriages without having to go through the legal system that tends to nurture consumerism? I think
not really. What one did though?
A marriage certificate
She meant the Natalie lady.
And that's way too much. In addition, for that to be legalized, it's only a minister of faith who can legalize a marriage in Kenya. What can we change about that to have our own African elders be able to legalize marriages without having to do an African wedding at home and then you proceed again to go to the churches? What can we change to break that process? Thank you.
Write down your questions. We have been here for 3 hours. People are tired. Write down your question, then be answered. You write down, please. I know you want to speak, but I'm asking you to write down your questions. You must be firm, please. You can now proceed to answer them. Sometimes a question, one of the things that we must also do is discipline and time. It's painful, it denies you opportunity to shine, but look at the end product. So if you write your question, we'll answer them. Please, can you write your question? Please. Let me now proceed to start answering the questions. The ones that brought to me. Number one is the one about freezing of aid, a good thing. I believe that one of the reasons why Africa remains the way she is that she has remained dependent for a long time. If you look at the money that has been stolen from the continent of Africa by our own leaders and our own peoples, it has brought Africa down. Right now, you know, in the last few years, we've had the Abacha money brought back to Nigeria, the Madueke money, which is being taken back to Nigeria, the Mobutu money. If all these monies were returned to the continent, we would not need aid. And in my view, it is important that we suffer some pain before we enjoy some gain. The second question is that I'm answering so that others can answer. DRC, I think let us not shy away. I have been myself very public about DRC. We must first of all know that our problems originate from the Berlin Wall. If these petitions were not made, and I think the former Prime Minister of Tanzania, Palamagamba Kabudi, said it very well. There are Maasais in Tanzania, Maasais in Kenya, Teso in Kenya, Moba in Togo, Moba in Ghana, by dint of colonial boundaries. It is therefore our duty to mediate this. This is why we talk about African unity. This is why in 1963 in Addis Ababa, the 32 leaders talked about African unity. This is why in 2018, we talked about having free movement of people. I'm happy that we are now beginning to resolve the problem. It is complex, and those of you who are from the Democratic Republic of Congo know that there are over 120 armed groups in DRC East. We only talk about FDLR and we only talk about M23. We suggested that there should be an all-Congolese conference bringing together all the people. I think I can allow my colleagues to answer the rest.
I will answer the solidarity one. Just give us the time and put a social media hashtag, and we can share with everybody else. I think it's a good idea. It's a very brilliant initiative. I'll be happy to share that one also. And what can African leaders do to assist in Congo? Well, you will finally get around what we've been fighting for the last couple of years. We need one Africa. All African countries are provinces. Our country is Africa. Maybe just get that one out of the way for a start. You don't come from a country called Zimbabwe, Tanzania. Leaders are constant. The most beautiful part, all our national armies, we collapsed all of them to form one big army. That does not fight African for African, but protect the borders of Africa. Because even in the midst of these wars that are in Congo, the third, fourth, fifth element is always found. I've not remembered any company in Congo that is manufacturing guns, yet they're blowing every day. The question is, who is bringing them into the country and to kill who? So maybe we need to just open up this Pandora box and understand that until the local people have a will, plus the African region and the continent as a whole, can march into Congo, like what Mugabe did, whether it was right or wrong, it's a conversation for another day. But one country was committed, they walked into Congo and pushed Rwanda out. Zimbabwe did it. And we're not the biggest army of Africa. Imagine if South Africa, Algeria, Egypt, Uganda, even Rwanda itself would be interested in the peace in Congo. But we cannot do that as single countries. We needed a unified ball of accountability where African leaders can be held accountable to the bloodshed of Congo. I still believe up to now, and I'm not mixing my words, that Uganda, Burundi, Rwanda, Angola, South Africa, Zimbabwe have all gone to Congo, but not for the peace of Congo, but for the resources of Congo. So you have always had divided interests, which fuel the groups that are in the country. And I think the unity of the leadership will be one of the most fine details. I'll try and share the document that I've done actually on the 7 key deliverables that Africa should be able to drive towards, so that we can silence, number one, all of us are Congolese in one way or the other, because we belong to the Great Rift Valley. The kingdom that reigned in this part of the Rift Valley was the Congo. And until we begin to understand that Hutu, Tutsi, Baganda, Luganda, Yankole, these are kindergarten conversations. The real issue is anybody who is within the region. I mean, I come from Zimbabwe, for example. My grandmother is from Mozambique, from my father's side. My grandmother is from Venda, South Africa, on my mother's side. My grandfather is from KwaZulu-Natal, South Africa, on my mother's side. And on my father's side, Shona. Now, put me together. I'm in Kima. Our history comes right up to Tanzania here, and right up into South Africa, into Mozambique, into Zimbabwe. So where can you put a border as Berlin Conference and say, you stop here? So you're right, Professor, until we look at the crisis and the catastrophe, Berlin Conference. And in conclusion, let me say the most painful thing to all of you. We cannot sit here as academicians and as educated people and we say Berlin Conference was wrong, morally wrong, yet we hold on to the legitimacy of our countries. What's wrong with you? If Berlin Conference was wrong, then even the borders and your president are all illegitimate.
Thank you very much, Professor. I completely share this point of view, and I think I said it before. We shall come together as a family. I'm African from the village Cameroon, but I'm African first and foremost. So I'm going to answer the questions. When the question was asked, I heard Joshua say, this is for you, this is for you. So the questions on marriage, because we had that discussion in the car. And I'm a very pro-African way of living. So I'm advocating for the legalizing of African marriage. That means the legalizing of polygamy, but also legalizing the traditional marriage. Nowadays, it came with, you said it came with the jurisdiction, they came with their law, and they say that a marriage is only official if it's signed at a certain office, but by a certain official. It's not like that. We should really, some people choose to marry themselves on the traditional way in the village. And the chief of the village should be able to register the marriage, and it will be compiled in the capital. At the same level as a marriage that is contracted before the mayor or in a church or somewhere. There are traditional marriage, they have religious marriages and civil marriages. We should all put them on the same level.
Even the traditional marriage and the white marriages. The white marriage is white tradition. So don't get confused. What you are calling a white wedding is white tradition. So both of them in my head, they are traditional weddings. The question is, which tradition?
Yes. So let's stick to it. And that's an advocacy I started a few years ago. And I had several problems several times when I was attending some meeting and stuff like that, and especially when it was about feminism and stuff like that. And I came and I said, let's legalize polygamy and let's legalize traditional marriage. People were a bit surprised, but that's something we should advocate for, because having family is really the start of our society. And if we put obstacles in the way the family are coming together, then we are meant to fail, and we shouldn't do that. And for the question of the African tradition and the parents that are telling you to shut up and be obedient and not talk too loud, I had that. my father even didn't talk to me for a long time, because I started being vocal about Africa. I studied political sciences and journalism, and when I returned to Cameroon after my studies, I returned actually to Cameroon when I was pregnant. I decided to give birth to my son in Cameroon, so that's when I returned. And my father told me, if you come back, I don't want you to work as a journalist. I don't want you to open your mouth. You are going to end up in prison. We are not going to accept it. You have to break free. You have to break free. You can't respect your parents, but you need to make them understand that the fight that you are fighting is to preserve our way of living, our culture, our tradition. And we need to have vocal people that dream so big that their fear are minimum. You know, so it's a fight. I had to fight it. Nowadays, my father is 84, my mom is 79, and they are all proud of me and everything. But it was a long road, actually, a very long one. So I will pass the.
I was fired from the church after working there for 33 years.
And I break out of the church when I was about to.
The young lady who talked about marriage in Kenya, that is not the law. I practice law. The position is that under Kenyan law, polygamous marriages are legitimate and registrable. So if you want to enter into a Koyo customary law, you want to enter into dual customary law, you do so in accordance, and they are registrable. There is a registry for that. Before that, we used to have different systems of marriage. You had the African Christian Marriage and Divorce Act, the Hindu Marriage and Divorce the registry. All these are feeds. So there is monogamous marriage and polygamous marriage. And it is not true that you pay 50,000. You can come and I'll tell you what the fees are.
I'm just allowing the last 3 questions to be answered, and then perhaps the other panelists can also add their voices to some of the responses.
Thank you very much, distinguished panelists. My name is Tom Gary. I'm not a student. I'm a lecturer in this university for almost 10 years and part of the administration together with Professor Mary Gitui. I have 1 or 2 questions which I want to pose to the panelists. First of all, just to appreciate the very in-depth deliberations and presentations that we have had here. Although it pains me that such discourse would happen in a platform like this in the university, and most of our students are not here, and even most of my fellow faculty. I think I can just see Dr. Kamala and maybe 1 or 2. I think in future it will be important to remove the barriers such as registration, so that as many students as possible can attend and participate in this discourse, because it is in their interest to be part and parcel of this debate of Pan-Africanism. That said, Africa has been whining, if I could say, for a long time, post-independence. When is this time, dear panelists, that we will say that we will have gotten it right? Is it fair to continue to blame the West or the whites, as we have heard most of this afternoon, for the ills that affect our continent, when in fact, some of the problems and the challenges that affect us are from within? Is it fair, does Pan-Africanism mean that we must be anti-West or anti-white? Can we pursue Pan-Africanism as an identity without necessarily hating or being, too opposed to the other side? I think I want to borrow what Natalie presented, that with the return of Donald Trump, the world is looking at a very unpredictable future and chances that they may come back to recolonize Africa there. Is it possible? Do we have the structures? Can we stand a recolonization of Africa at this point? Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm going direct to the question. My name is Stephen from University of Nairobi. The question is, how can we create the inclusive economic integration for the youth from less progressive areas, such as Turkana, to shape the features of African financial muscles? As direct Professor Lumumba and Professor Pondi. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Dominic Unjao. I have a question to the panelists. And this is because I've observed that every person, there's certain age group that led us, the Kenyattas, Kwame Nkrumah, all of them were very pro-African, but when they accessed power, they changed. Yeah. I want to serve in that capacity also. But my question is, how do I stay grounded, even when I access the proximity of power? What do we do so as not to lose focus when we get to those positions of power? Thank you.
Obvious questions. They're asking obvious questions.
And I'll be violent, Honorable, because you are a lecturer, and I'm not going to spare you. That we have a problem, lecturer, with a system that has vandalized us to this level. There's no way we can sugarcoat the people that destroyed us and hope that they will come with a solution of how to help us.
Yeah.
The problem we have right now is the educated community that has become custodians. gatekeepers. But they never have that opportunity. They tell you what to do. Donald Trump wakes up in the morning and he decides. And I think you're taking away the voice of the people when you want to negotiate with the system. Listen, my honorable lecturer, in simple words. Hyenas don't change their diet because sheep are protesting.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that we are already very late. I will not really last long. I will just answer by one phrase. What can be done to keep young Africans at home? Give them jobs, give them proper education that really educate them to solve the problem by raising the problem-solving capacity. Show them the way where they came from so that they can project themselves in the future from that knowledge of the past. You must show me a tree without fruits. Then I will believe that all that we are saying here is a waste of time. The youth also should learn to learn. It's very important. The way we used to function is that you have to observe and then grow. But don't imitate foolishness. Not everything that is done in Africa is good. Certainly not. There are many bad things in Africa. But we must pick and choose. And we must, on the outside, what reinforces us. So we must select. We must have the capacity to select, which is not mainly what we can do. We have things that are thrown into our throats and say, this is good for you. That is over now. We must claim that. Now, about the Afro-descendants, people who came from Africa, what can they do to reinforce what is going on here? In my mind, it's a contract between them and us and them. In the sense that they are not two different people, they're the same person. So, henceforth, in a place like the United Nations, when they killed George Floyd,
yeah.
Yes, we must tell America that, okay, you don't get the colton. It's really simple. That's the language everyone understands. We don't give you our coffee and tea. You can get it somewhere else. So I think if we start really taking care of our own, they will be stronger where they are. And we also will have the kind of knowledge which is adapted to what we need and which they already have. So we must try to have an ebony bond ebony bridge between them and us. I'm just going to tell you something which actually shocked me. There's a USA Africa summit in Washington, D.C. Just less than half an hour from the house. We did not find the time, when I say we, our representatives who were in Washington, to take an hour to go to Howard University, maybe with 2 or 3 heads of states and the president of the AU Commission, just to say we've come to say hello to you and to know how you are. Your parents have sent us to inquire on how you are. That's it. We didn't find time to do it. And I think shame on us. As long as we continue like this, we can have all the long speeches here. There is something wrong with the way we think. Because I can't imagine such a thing happening if there were Chinese somewhere else. And then there's a China, I don't know, and they don't go to the community. Doesn't make sense to me. Okay. last question, because there are many more, but just one. Will we continue to blame the West indefinitely? Who blames the West indefinitely? We just take note of what is happening. And I think that there are many people here who are saying that we to blame for many things. Unless I didn't hear correctly. But many of us here say that we are responsible for many things that have gone wrong. So it's not a one-sided procedure where someone is accused and we are saints. We have nothing to blame for ourselves. No, it's not true. I think that there are many things that have gone wrong due to the way we have actually set up things clearly. But you cannot change history. You cannot say that we sat at Berlin conference. We did not. That you cannot invent that. You cannot say that we are the most indebted countries on earth, when statistics indicate this. Because I think sometimes we must be realistic and be courageous enough. We are called most indebted countries. Okay. Let me tell you what, I remember, the most indebted country in Africa is 25 billion US dollars. 25 billion US dollars is the most indebted African country. Okay? And the country is Angola, followed by Ethiopia, 13.5 billion US dollars. The most indebted country in the world is the United States of America, with 18,286 billion US dollars. Followed by the UK, 7,499 US billion dollars. So I think, who is fooling whom? That's the question. Who is fooling whom? And we keep beating that every day because it affects not our mind, but our subconscious mind. That is where the we have done things right. And I think that the question is far from being positive. The last thing that I wanted to say had to do with the last question that was asked to me. Can we create an economic system that is inclusive for the marginalized? I think that's the whole idea of what we've been talking here today. The African, in his civilization, does not conceive okay? If you go to a village, you will not find a place called prison. The prisons which we have are social prisons. At the end of a palaver, you are declared a prisoner because you have been excluded from the community and the time is given. 1 month, 2 months, no one has to talk to you and you have to talk to nobody. Anyone who ventures to talk to you will be also included in that prison. So this is worse than anything if you tell that to an African. Okay? The same thing that in Africa, there was no school. Why? Because all adults of the village were teachers and responsible for people who had the age of their children, no matter whether they were the biological children or not. It was exactly the same thing. There was no difference. Any parent had the right to educate and to correct a child that has gone wrong. So we didn't have a place called school. You go there from 8 o'clock to 5 o'clock, 8 to 5 you do mathematics, 8 to 9 mathematics, after you do geography, no. We had a way of approaching all this, and I think that the results were excellent. Because there was no famine. How come that famine comes at a certain point in time in Africa? We must ask those questions. We must ask those questions. So, I'm not saying that the West or the outside world is responsible for everything, but they are responsible for many things, which is messing up our minds, messing up our personalities, and saying that anything that we do is by definition bad, backward, and so on and so forth. That is extremely bad. We must correct that. We must put ourselves in the middle of the picture. And the idea of Africa's marginalization is a stupidity. You cannot be at the mark of yourself. Physically, it's not possible. So we must stop that. And like many Africans who say, yeah, we are marginalized. Compared to what? Vis-a-vis what? You cannot be marginalized if you think of yourself as being the heart of your own life. You cannot. So we are sick somewhere. And it's wrong for us not to acknowledge it. We are sick so that we must get restored who we are in our full responsibility of ourselves. And all that we've seen here, been saying here, is the ways to go through in order to find the full autonomy, the full ability to lead our lives, not against anybody, but for ourselves. Thank you.
If you have any last remarks or any final words.
He's a kind man. Me, I come from a religious perspective with my friends here who blame the devil until he's dead.
Any last remarks from you, ladies, gentlemen? Professor Mary.
Thank you so much. But for me, it's lessons we take on from this experience this evening. I don't know what message this will send to you, but in one of the villages here in Kenya, a young lady arrives in this old woman's home with a little child who says, "Mama, I am around here looking for my relative with whom I was to leave this little child so that I can go on a mission to look for some greener pasture." Stranger, total stranger completely. We live in a world full of suspicion. And this old woman told this girl, "If what you have told me is the truth, then leave this child here." It may look like a very simple story, but that exercise or that incident has helped create a bond that you cannot even describe in any words. And for me, if what you are saying is the truth, is something I would like us to leave this room with. We may not go back, and I'll go to what I said earlier. Beatty said the drums are beating and we can't keep quiet. What are the principles that make us human that we can carry from here? Who is responsible for the leaders, the leadership? Maybe let me not even say leaders. Who is responsible? Sometimes it's our own ways of doing things that contribute to where we are. But when you find yourself lying down, the solution is to get up, dust, and go and dance. Thank you.
You're crazy. Big cheese.
Are you ready? Thank you very much, our dear panelists. We are so grateful. We ask for your forgiveness because we have kept you here longer than we should. Please forgive us. And
let's clap for the wonderful, very smart, very intelligent moderator of the. You made our day.
May I ask that we all stand up as we come to a close to this session? I want to remind you, next Friday the 28th, at this same venue starting from 6 p.m., the Pan-African Awards. There's going to be a ceremony, the closing ceremony, where the different people will be awarded
the various awards for various categories by Paul Ella and his team. And there will be a lot of activities. Many musicians are going to be performing. There'll be a beautiful concert. So we ask you please to mark that date in your diary, next Friday, 28th of February, right here at the same venue here in Koya. Now, I would like us all to give a final, loud, appreciative applause for yourselves and for the panelists here today. Let us give them all a round of applause as we wish them farewell. We are so proud of you. We love you. Thank you very much.
Yo, we're coming to we literally done. It's been an amazing session. Hope you guys have enjoyed those 3 hours, 30 minutes. If you have any questions, keep it to yourself.
Time for questions is over.
It's over. Are you gonna pay for the tea?
The guests are angry.
Yeah,
They
Dr.
have
Mumbi
to
didn't
go.
come. Dr. Mumbi, Dr. Tata. But yeah, Kit, we're calling you in a few. You know what time it is. But yeah, it's been amazing. Hope you guys have really enjoyed. We've had fun. Oh my God, this has been an amazing session. We should do this more often. If there's more events like this, you know. Yeah. But hope you guys have enjoyed because we have enjoyed. I've enjoyed at least. I've enjoyed Lumumba's speech.
All of them.
Yeah, I've enjoyed all of them.
So, bye guys.
Yeah, so see you guys tomorrow, not tomorrow. See you guys on Monday. Yeah, for those of course who are expecting to maybe see us again. See you guys on Monday. Have yourselves a beautiful weekend. Take care, be safe. Much love.